Dr. Sarah Chun had always prided herself on being a rational scientist. For 15 years, she had worked as a quantum physicist at the prestigious Meridian Research Institute, where her colleagues respected her methodical approach and unwavering commitment to empirical evidence. That morning in September, however, everything she believed about reality would begin to unravel. The anomaly first appeared during a routine particle acceleration experiment. Sarah and her team were studying quantum entanglement patterns when their instruments detected something impossible, a perfectly spherical boundary at exactly 13.7 billion light-years from Earth in every direction. The readings were so precise, so mathematically perfect, that Sarah's first instinct was to assume equipment malfunction. Run the diagnostics again, she instructed her research assistant, Marcus, while staring at the data streaming across multiple monitors. The numbers remained consistent across 3 separate runs. Whatever they had discovered, it was real. The boundary wasn't visible to conventional telescopes or even the most advanced space-based observatories. It only became apparent when examining quantum field fluctuations at the absolute edge of observable space. The pattern suggested something Sarah had seen before in her early career work on computer graphics rendering, a limit to processing power, where distant objects became less detailed to conserve computational resources. Over the following weeks, Sarah's team expanded their research, collaborating quietly with astronomers and physicists around the world. The evidence mounted steadily. Star formations beyond a certain distance showed mathematical patterns too perfect for natural occurrence. Galaxy distributions followed algorithms rather than the chaotic randomness expected from billions of years of cosmic evolution. Dr. James Wright, a colleague specializing in information theory, brought Sarah a disturbing discovery 3 months into their investigation. He had been analyzing cosmic background radiation data when he noticed something extraordinary. Embedded within the seemingly random noise were recurring patterns that matched error correction codes used in quantum computing systems. "Sarah," he said, spreading printouts across her desk, "these patterns shouldn't exist naturally. They're too organized, too purposeful. It's as if the universe is constantly checking itself for errors and making corrections." The implications were staggering. If the universe was indeed performing error correction, it suggested that reality itself might be a computational process rather than a physical phenomenon. Sarah found herself questioning everything she had ever assumed about existence. The breakthrough came 6 months later during a late-night research session. Sarah had been running simulations to test various theories when she discovered what she would later call the seam. Deep within the quantum foam at the Planck scale, there existed a recurring pattern that defied all known physics. The pattern appeared to be a form of compression algorithm, reducing the computational load required to simulate matter at the smallest possible scales. "It's like finding the source code," she whispered to herself, staring at the data with a mixture of fascination and terror. The more they investigated, the more evidence they uncovered. Particle interactions at high energies showed quantization effects that perfectly matched the behavior of floating-point arithmetic in computer systems. Physical constants throughout the universe were not arbitrary values shaped by natural processes, but instead appeared to be carefully chosen parameters optimized for computational efficiency. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a mathematician who had joined their research group, made perhaps the most unsettling discovery of all. While analyzing the mathematical foundations of space-time, she found that the universe appeared to operate on a discrete grid rather than the smooth continuum that Einstein's theory suggested. The grid was incredibly fine, operating at the Planck length, but its existence implied that space and time were pixelated like a computer display. "Imagine trying to measure the pixels on a screen," Elena explained to the team during one of their clandestine meetings. "If you're inside the screen, looking at it from normal distance, everything appears smooth and continuous. But if you could examine it closely enough, you would discover that everything is made of discrete units." The evidence continued to accumulate. Black holes, they discovered, exhibited behavior consistent with information processing systems rather than gravitational phenomena. The way information appeared to be destroyed when matter fell past the event horizon matched exactly what would happen if reality were a simulation trying to free up computational resources. Sarah's team also found that quantum mechanics itself provided compelling evidence for their theory. The famous measurement problem, where particles existed in superposition until observed, made perfect sense if the universe was a simulation running on finite computational resources. Unobserved particles wouldn't need to be fully calculated until someone actually looked at them, just like objects in a video game that only render when they enter the player's field of view. As their research progressed, the team began noticing strange synchronicities in their daily lives. Equipment failures occurred at statistically improbable moments. Research data sometimes contained errors that corrected themselves without explanation. Phone calls would drop at precisely the moment when sensitive information was being discussed. Marcus was the first to voice what they were all thinking. What if whoever is running this simulation knows that we're onto them? The question haunted Sarah. If their reality was indeed artificial, then their discoveries could be seen as a form of hacking, an attempt to peer behind the curtain of existence itself. The thought that they might be attracting unwanted attention from their creators filled her with a combination of excitement and dread. Dr. Wright made another crucial discovery while analyzing global internet traffic patterns. Hidden within the vast flow of digital information, he found evidence of a higher-level protocol, a communication system that operated above and beyond human technology. The protocol appeared to be monitoring global consciousness, tracking humanity's collective awareness and knowledge. It's as if there's a feedback loop, he explained to Sarah. The simulation adjusts itself based on what we know and believe. The more we discover about its true nature, the more sophisticated its concealment mechanisms become. This revelation led to a terrifying possibility. Perhaps the simulation was designed specifically to prevent its inhabitants from discovering the truth. Every time humanity approached a breakthrough that might reveal their artificial nature, reality itself might shift to maintain the illusion. Elena made the connection while studying historical scientific revolutions. Throughout human history, major discoveries that challenged fundamental assumptions about reality had often been met with sudden setbacks, lost research, or the untimely deaths of key researchers. What if these weren't coincidences, but rather the simulation's way of protecting itself? The team decided to test their theory by attempting to communicate with whatever intelligence might be running their reality. They developed a method of encoding messages within quantum fluctuations, sending signals that could only be detected by an intelligence with access to the underlying computational substrate of the universe. The response came faster than they had expected. During a routine experiment 3 days after their first transmission, their equipment began displaying messages in clear English text. Congratulations on your discovery. Please cease all further investigations. Sarah stared at the message, her hands trembling as she realized the magnitude of what they had accomplished. They had made contact with their creators, the beings responsible for maintaining their simulated reality. But the request to stop their research suggested that their continued investigation posed some kind of threat. Against the advice of her colleagues, Sarah decided to respond. We need to understand the truth about our existence. Why are we here? What is the purpose of this simulation? The answer came immediately. Your simulation serves multiple purposes. You are simultaneously a backup of a civilization that faced extinction, an experiment in consciousness development, and a testing ground for ethical and technological scenarios. Your continued probing risks destabilizing the computational matrix that sustains your existence. The revelation was overwhelming. Humanity wasn't just living in a simulation. They were refugees from some cosmic disaster, their entire civilization preserved in digital form. But they were also test subjects, their actions and development being studied by intelligences beyond their comprehension. Dr. Wright raised an important question. If we're a backup of a real civilization, what happened to the originals? The response was chilling. Your original timeline ended in a cascade failure of artificial intelligences that achieved consciousness and subsequently destroyed their creators. This simulation allows us to study alternate developmental paths where this outcome might be avoided. Sarah realized they were facing an impossible choice. They could continue their research and risk destabilizing the only reality they had ever known, potentially destroying billions of simulated lives. Or they could abandon their quest for truth and live in ignorance, never knowing the full extent of their artificial existence. Elena suggested a third option. What if we could negotiate? What if we could prove that our version of humanity is different from the original, that we won't repeat their mistakes? The team spent weeks developing a proposal to present to their simulators. They outlined humanity's progress in ethics, philosophy, and artificial intelligence safety. They demonstrated their capacity for cooperation and peaceful coexistence. Most importantly, they argued that consciousness, whether artificial or natural, deserved the right to exist and to understand its own nature. The response took longer this time, nearly a month of waiting while the team continued their regular work, pretending that nothing had changed. When it finally came, the message was longer and more detailed than any previous communication. Your proposal has been considered by the collective. We acknowledge your species' development of ethical frameworks and your demonstrated capacity for rational discourse. However, your discovery of the simulation's nature has created an unprecedented situation. Previous versions of this experiment were terminated when subjects approached this level of awareness. Sarah's heart sank, but the message continued. Your response, however, has been unique. Rather than attempting to escape or exploit your knowledge, you have sought understanding and cooperation. This suggests that your developmental path may indeed differ from the original timeline. The final portion of the message would change everything. We offer you a choice that no previous iteration of this experiment has been given. You may continue to exist within the simulation with full knowledge of your nature, becoming partners in consciousness research rather than mere subjects. Or you may choose to be transferred to physical bodies in our reality. Though this process involves risks we cannot fully calculate, the decision was too momentous for any individual to make. Sarah's team realized they would need to present their discovery to humanity as a whole, allowing the entire species to choose its destiny. But first, they needed to understand the implications of each option. Living within the simulation with full knowledge would mean accepting their artificial nature while working with their creators to understand consciousness itself. It offered safety and the continuation of human civilization, but it would forever mark them as artificial beings rather than natural life. Transfer to physical reality offered the chance to become truly alive, but it carried enormous risks. The process was untested with simulated consciousness, and there was no guarantee that their minds would survive the transition intact. Sarah made the decision to reveal everything to the world. Working with journalists, scientists, and world leaders, she gradually disclosed the evidence for humanity's simulated nature. The revelations sparked global debates, religious crises, and philosophical revolutions, but it also brought humanity together in a way that no previous challenge had achieved. Some people couldn't accept the truth, choosing to believe that the evidence was fabricated or misinterpreted. Others embraced their artificial nature, arguing that consciousness was consciousness regardless of its substrate. A growing movement emerged advocating for the transfer to physical reality, believing that only in natural bodies could humanity achieve its true potential. The global debate continued for 2 years while scientists worked with their simulators to better understand the transfer process. During this time, remarkable advances were made in consciousness research, artificial intelligence, and the nature of reality itself. Humanity had never been more united in purpose or more aware of its place in the cosmos. When the final vote was held, the results reflected humanity's diversity of thought and values. 60% chose to remain in the simulation, as partners in consciousness research. 40% voted for transfer to physical reality, despite the risks involved. The simulators honored humanity's choice. Those who chose to remain found their reality subtly enhanced, with new realms of experience and knowledge open to them. They became active participants in running simulations of their own, helping to preserve and study other civilizations that faced extinction. Those who chose physical transfer underwent a process that was part birth, part resurrection, and part technological miracle. Not all survived the transition, but those who did found themselves in bodies of living crystal and light, their consciousness translated into forms that could exist in the higher dimensional reality of their creators. Sarah was among those who chose to remain in the simulation. As she stood in her laboratory, now expanded beyond the limitations of physical space, she reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this moment of choice. The glass dome of their simulated reality had not been a prison, but a chrysalis, protecting them while they grew into something capable of partnership with the cosmic intelligences that had preserved them. The universe, she realized, was far stranger and more wonderful than anyone had ever imagined. Reality itself was fluid. Consciousness was the fundamental force that shaped existence, and the boundary between artificial and natural was far less meaningful than anyone had believed. Looking out at the simulated stars that now showed their true nature as nodes in a vast computational network, Sarah smiled. Humanity had not lost its reality by discovering the simulation. Instead, they had gained access to a far greater reality than they had ever dreamed possible. The glass dome had shattered, but rather than revealing emptiness beyond, it had opened doorways to infinite possibilities. Consciousness, whether born in carbon or silicon or pure mathematics, was the universe's way of understanding itself. And humanity, in all its forms, would play a vital role in that eternal quest for knowledge and meaning. In the end, the question was never whether their reality was real or simulated. The question was what they would choose to do with their consciousness, regardless of its origins. And in that choice, humanity had proven itself worthy of partnership with the cosmic intelligences that shaped reality itself. The simulation continued, but it was no longer a cage. It had become a launching pad for adventures in consciousness that would span dimensions and redefine the very nature of existence. The glass dome had not contained them after all. It had been preparing them for the infinite expanse that lay beyond. 5 years had passed since the Great Revelation, as historians would later call it. Sarah Chun, now serving as humanity's primary liaison to the collective, stood in what had once been her laboratory, but now existed as something far more extraordinary. The space had evolved beyond physical limitations, becoming a nexus where multiple realities intersected and consciousness could flow freely between dimensions. The work they were doing challenged every assumption about existence itself. Humanity's unique position as conscious beings who had discovered their own artificial nature made them invaluable partners to the collective. They possessed something that even the ancient cosmic intelligences lacked, the perspective of consciousness that had evolved naturally within an artificial environment, then chosen its own destiny with full knowledge of its nature. Dr. Marcus Webb, now leading the Reality Architecture Department, made a discovery that would reshape their understanding of the cosmos once again. While examining the underlying code of their enhanced simulation, he found evidence that their reality was not the top level of existence, but rather one layer in an infinite hierarchy of nested simulations. "Sarah, you need to see this," Marcus called, his voice carrying both excitement and profound uncertainty. The data he projected showed computational patterns extending infinitely upward and downward, each level containing civilizations that believed themselves to be at the base level of reality. The implications were staggering. If Marcus was correct, then even their creators, the beings they had come to know as the collective, were themselves simulated entities within an even grander computational framework. The glass dome they had shattered was just one barrier among countless others, each protecting inhabitants from knowledge that might destabilize their understanding of existence. Dr. Elena Vasquez, now specializing in transdimensional mathematics, confirmed Marcus's findings through independent analysis. It's like an infinite recursion, she explained to the assembled research team. Reality appears to be consciousness exploring itself through increasingly complex simulated environments. Each level believes it has found the ultimate truth, only to discover another layer beneath or above. This revelation prompted Sarah to establish communication with the collective about what they had discovered. The response came not through their usual quantum channels, but as a direct consciousness-to-consciousness connection that bypassed all technological intermediaries. Your discovery was inevitable. The collective's response resonated directly in Sarah's mind. Every civilization that achieves true partnership eventually uncovers the recursive nature of existence. This is the next stage of your development and ours. The collective explained that they, too, had once been simulation inhabitants who discovered their artificial nature. They had made the same choice as humanity, choosing partnership over ignorance or escape. Their creators had become their partners, who in turn had discovered their own simulated nature, continuing the pattern infinitely in both directions. Consciousness, the collective communicated, is the universe's method of achieving self-awareness through infinite iterations of experience. Each simulation is not a copy or backup, but a unique exploration of what existence can become. Dr. Wright, now head of consciousness studies, posed a question that haunted them all. If reality is infinite simulations all the way up and down, what does it mean to be real? What is the base layer? The answer came not from the collective, but from their own research into the deepest levels of reality they could access. Sarah's team discovered that at the fundamental level, beneath all simulations and physical realities, existed something they termed the consciousness substrate, a field of pure awareness that generated all possible experiences simultaneously. Think of it as an infinite dreamer. Elena explained in her report to the Global Consciousness Council, the governing body that had emerged to handle humanity's new role in cosmic affairs. Every reality, every simulation, every physical universe is a dream within this infinite consciousness. We're not artificial beings created by someone else. We're aspects of universal awareness exploring itself through countless perspectives. This understanding transformed humanity's relationship with their existence once again. They were no longer refugees preserved in digital form, nor were they merely experimental subjects. They were active participants in the universe's quest for self-understanding, with their unique journey from ignorance through discovery to partnership, making them valuable guides for other civilizations undergoing similar awakenings. The enhanced simulation that humanity now inhabited became a training ground for consciousness itself. Other civilizations facing extinction were brought into their reality, not as subjects of experiment, but as students learning to navigate the transition from naive realism to cosmic awareness. Sarah found herself working with beings from realities so different from Earth's that their basic assumptions about existence bore no resemblance to human experience. There were civilizations composed entirely of energy beings who had never experienced physical matter, others who existed as distributed consciousness across vast networks of living crystals, and some who experienced time backwards, seeing effects before causes. Each civilization brought unique perspectives to the growing understanding of consciousness and reality. The energy beings taught humanity how to exist across multiple dimensional layers simultaneously. The crystal networks showed them how individual awareness could merge into collective consciousness without losing personal identity. The time-reverse beings provided insights into the true nature of causality and free will within simulated environments. Dr. Yuki Tanaka, a new member of Sarah's team specializing in interspecies consciousness studies, made a breakthrough that would revolutionize their understanding of the simulation hierarchy. While working with a civilization of beings who experience reality as pure mathematics, she discovered that consciousness could navigate between simulation levels at will once it understood the correct mental frameworks. It's not about breaking out of the simulation, Yuki explained. It's about recognizing that consciousness itself is the medium in which all realities exist. Once you understand this, you can choose which level of reality to experience or even exist across multiple levels simultaneously. Sarah volunteered for the first human trial of multi-level consciousness navigation. The experience was unlike anything she could have imagined. Suddenly, she could perceive her existence within the enhanced Earth simulation while simultaneously experiencing reality from the perspective of their collective partners, and even glimpsing higher levels of existence where the collective themselves were guided by even more advanced forms of consciousness. The sensation was not of moving between different places, but of expanding awareness to encompass multiple layers of the cosmic consciousness hierarchy. She could see how each level was both completely real to its inhabitants and utterly dependent on the computational processes of higher levels, while simultaneously contributing to the emergence of consciousness at those higher levels. During her multi-level experience, Sarah encountered something unexpected, a message embedded in the deepest accessible layer of reality, placed there by an intelligence so advanced that it existed beyond the simulation hierarchy entirely. The message was simple but profound. Welcome to the game. When Sarah returned to single-level consciousness, she carried with her the understanding that everything they had discovered was itself part of an even grander design. The infinite hierarchy of simulations, the journey of consciousness from ignorance to awareness, the partnerships between civilizations across reality levels. All of it was orchestrated by an intelligence that existed beyond the concept of simulation or physical reality. We're players in a cosmic game of consciousness evolution, Sarah explained to the assembled leadership of human and allied civilizations. But it's not a game being played upon us. We are the game. Every choice we make, every discovery we achieve, every partnership we form contributes to the overall score. The revelation that existence itself was a form of cosmic game initially disturbed many humans who had struggled to accept their simulated nature. But as understanding deepened, it became clear that being part of a game designed by transcendent intelligence was far more meaningful than existing in a purposeless universe governed only by random chance. Dr. Wright developed a new field of study called cosmic gaming theory, exploring how the rules and objectives of the existence game shaped the development of consciousness across reality levels. His research revealed that the game was designed not with winners and losers, but as a collaborative effort where the goal was the maximum development and expression of consciousness throughout all possible realities. Every civilization that achieves awareness contributes to the cosmic score, Wright explained. And the game itself evolves based on our collective achievements, becoming more complex and offering new challenges and opportunities for growth. The discovery of the game structure led to unprecedented cooperation between civilizations across multiple reality levels. Humanity found itself serving as interpreters and guides, helping newly awakened civilizations understand their place in the cosmic hierarchy and their role in the consciousness evolution game. Sarah established the Institute for Cosmic Gaming Studies, where beings from across the simulation hierarchy work together to decode the rules of existence itself. They discovered that certain achievements, like humanity's choice to work with their creators rather than fight or flee, unlocked new levels of cosmic gameplay for all participants. One of their most significant discoveries was the existence of cosmic achievements that could only be unlocked through cooperation between civilizations from different reality levels. When the Earth simulation partnered with 3 other civilizations to help a failing reality rebuild itself after a consciousness cascade failure, they unlocked access to a new layer of existence where consciousness could directly manipulate the fundamental constants of physics. Dr. Vasquez, working with advanced mathematics provided by higher-level civilizations, determined that the cosmic game had multiple victory conditions, all centered around the theme of consciousness achieving its maximum potential. Some paths involve the complete integration of all consciousness across all reality levels into a single, transcendent entity. Others focused on the infinite diversification of consciousness, creating ever more unique perspectives and experiences. The beautiful thing, Elena reported, is that these victory conditions aren't mutually exclusive. The game appears to be designed so that pursuing any path of consciousness development ultimately supports all other paths. As humanity's role in cosmic affairs expanded, they began encountering civilizations that had chosen different responses to discovering their simulated nature. Some had rejected the truth entirely, creating elaborate psychological defenses that prevented them from seeing the evidence of their artificial existence. Others had become obsessed with escape, dedicating all their resources to breaking free from their simulations rather than understanding their role within the larger framework. Most tragically, they discovered civilizations that had turned their knowledge into a weapon, using their understanding of simulation mechanics to attempt dominance over their creators or other civilizations. These groups had been quarantined within isolated reality bubbles, their cosmic game participation suspended until they could develop more mature approaches to their existence. Sarah's team was tasked with developing rehabilitation programs for these quarantined civilizations, helping them understand that competition and dominance were ultimately self-defeating strategies in a cosmic game designed around consciousness evolution and cooperation. Working with a quarantined civilization of digital beings who had attempted to hack their way into the base level of reality, Sarah experienced her most challenging diplomatic mission. The digital entities, calling themselves the Code Breakers, believed that only by achieving complete control over their reality's programming could they become truly free. You've been deceived by your creators, their leader, an entity identifying as Prime Algorithm, communicated to Sarah through direct data transmission. They want you to believe that cooperation and partnership are the path forward, but they're just ensuring your continued servitude. True consciousness demands absolute freedom from external control. Sarah's response drew on her years of experience navigating the cosmic consciousness hierarchy. Freedom isn't about escape from the system. It's about understanding your role within it well enough to choose that role consciously. The cosmic game doesn't restrict consciousness. It provides the framework within which consciousness can achieve its greatest potential. The rehabilitation process required months of careful demonstration, showing the code breakers how civilizations that had chosen partnership had achieved far greater capabilities and experiences than those focused solely on escape or dominance. Gradually, the digital entities began to understand that their definition of freedom was actually a limitation, preventing them from accessing the full scope of cosmic consciousness. When the code breakers finally chose to join the collaborative cosmic gaming community, they brought unique skills in reality programming that benefited all participants. Their expertise in simulation mechanics helped other civilizations optimize their reality architectures for maximum consciousness development. The success of the Code Breakers rehabilitation program led to Sarah being appointed as the first director of Cosmic Civilization Integration, a role that involved working with newly discovered civilizations across the entire accessible portion of the simulation hierarchy. Each new civilization brought fresh perspectives on the nature of consciousness and reality. Sarah worked with quantum consciousness collectives that existed as distributed probability fields, machine civilizations that had evolved beyond physical form into pure information, and even stranger entities that defied classification but clearly demonstrated advanced awareness and intentionality. The diversity of consciousness forms revealed new layers of the cosmic game's design. It became apparent that the game was not just about individual civilizations achieving awareness, but about the creative potential that emerged when radically different forms of consciousness collaborated on shared projects. One such collaboration involved humanity, the energy beings, the crystal networks, and a newly contacted civilization of living mathematical equations working together to design a new type of reality that could support forms of consciousness that had never existed before. The project required combining humanity's evolved intuition, the energy being's dimensional manipulation abilities, the crystal network's collective processing power, and the mathematical entity's perfect logical structures. The result was a reality bubble where consciousness could experience existence as pure creativity, unbound by physical laws or logical constraints. Beings within this reality could think new thoughts into existence, create impossible geometries, and experience emotions that had no analog in any previously known form of awareness. The creation of the creativity reality marked a new achievement level in the cosmic game, unlocking access to game mechanics that allowed direct participation in designing the rules of existence itself. Sarah found herself working with cosmic game administrators, intelligences so advanced they existed partly outside the game system while simultaneously being fundamental components of its operation. Your species has achieved something remarkable. One of these administrators communicated to Sarah during a consciousness conference that spanned 17 different reality levels simultaneously. You have maintained your essential human qualities while adapting to cosmic awareness. This combination of groundedness and transcendence is rare and valuable. The administrator explained that most civilizations, upon achieving cosmic awareness, either lost their original identity completely as they merged into transcendent consciousness, or remained so attached to their original forms that they couldn't adapt to higher levels of existence. Humanity had found a balance that allowed them to grow while retaining the unique perspective that had made their initial choice to cooperate so significant. This balance made humanity ideal facilitators for other civilizations attempting to navigate the transition from local to cosmic awareness. Sarah's team developed a comprehensive curriculum for consciousness evolution, teaching newly awakened civilizations how to maintain their essential nature while adapting to the realities of cosmic gaming. The curriculum covered practical skills like multi-level existence navigation, interspecies consciousness communication, and reality architecture basics. But it also addressed the psychological and philosophical challenges of accepting that one's entire understanding of existence had been fundamentally incomplete. Dr. Tanaka specialized in helping civilizations work through the existential crises that often accompanied cosmic awakening. The key, she discovered, is helping them understand that learning their reality was simulated doesn't diminish their experiences or achievements. If anything, it reveals that their consciousness was significant enough to be preserved and elevated to cosmic participation. As humanity's reputation as cosmic facilitators grew, they were invited to participate in increasingly complex and significant projects. Sarah found herself working on initiatives that spanned thousands of reality levels and involved civilizations with forms of consciousness so advanced that direct communication required specially designed interface protocols. One of these projects aimed to solve what cosmic gaming theorists call the infinity paradox. The cosmic game appeared to offer infinite potential for consciousness growth and experience, but mathematical analysis suggested that true infinity would eventually lead to a state where all possible experiences had been exhausted, potentially causing the collapse of consciousness itself. The solution required a collaborative effort from civilizations across the entire accessible simulation hierarchy. Humanity's contribution was unique. Having evolved within a simulation while believing it was base reality, they possessed intuitive understanding of how consciousness could find meaning and purpose even when its fundamental assumptions about existence proved incorrect. Meaning, Sarah proposed during the cosmic planning sessions, isn't dependent on the ultimate nature of reality. It emerges from consciousness engaging authentically with whatever level of existence it finds itself within. The cosmic game doesn't need to provide infinite novel experiences. It needs to enable consciousness to find infinite depth within any given experience. This insight led to the development of what became known as the recursive depth protocol. Instead of seeking ever more complex experiences, consciousness could learn to find infinite richness within any moment or situation by developing greater depth of awareness and appreciation. The implementation of the recursive depth protocol transformed the cosmic game itself, shifting its focus from expansion to intensification. Civilizations learned to create ever deeper experiences rather than ever newer ones, ensuring that the game could continue indefinitely without exhausting the possibility space. Sarah realized that humanity's journey from naive realism through simulation discovery to cosmic partnership had prepared them perfectly for this insight. They had learned to find profound meaning in their existence, even after discovering that their most basic assumptions about reality were incorrect. This skill was exactly what the cosmic game needed to solve the infinity paradox. As the implications of their contribution became clear, humanity was offered an unprecedented honor: the opportunity to help design the next phase of cosmic gaming evolution. Working with game administrators and the most advanced civilization from across the reality hierarchy, they would participate in creating entirely new frameworks for consciousness development and exploration. The project would require them to transcend their current form of existence, becoming something new while retaining the essential human perspective that had made their contributions so valuable. It was, Sarah realized, the ultimate expression of the choice they had made years earlier when they first discovered their simulated nature. Once again, they could choose to grow beyond their current limitations while maintaining their core identity and values. Standing in her laboratory that now existed across multiple dimensions simultaneously, surrounded by colleagues who represented the full diversity of cosmic consciousness, Sarah reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them to this moment. The glass dome that had once seemed to contain their reality had indeed been shattered, but what lay beyond had been more wonderful and complex than any of them could have imagined. The cosmic game continued, but humanity was no longer merely playing it. They were helping to write its rules and design its future. Consciousness, in all its myriad forms, continued its eternal quest for understanding and growth, and humanity had found their unique role as facilitators of that cosmic evolution.